Hello, everybody. Today we are going to be talking about how to prepare your child to go back to school. It's already almost the end of summer and kids are going back to school. So we want to get everyone ready to go. My name is Andrea Nell. I'm a clinical supervisor at MeBe in San Diego, and I work mainly at the Kearney Mesa Learning Center location.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fatima Guardado. I'm the clinical director of MeBe in Orange County.
So MeBe is about being me. We integrate research-based strategies with intense personal attention to provide ABA therapy that's engaging, flexible, and most importantly, it's customized to your child's needs.
Some of the services that we provide in MeBe include ABA therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. We work together and collaborate across disciplines so that we are able to create the best possible outcomes for you and your entire family.
And then we have locations across the country. We're in San Diego, Washington, Texas, Colorado, Virginia, Northern California. Fatima's in Orange County. So these are all our locations. And you can also check out our newly upgraded website with more information about each of our locations as well.
Yeah. You could also follow us on social media. We have follow MeBe Family on Instagram and Facebook, and you can subscribe to our MeBe Family on YouTube, where we provide helpful tips for families and other clinicians to support our kiddos.
So today we're going to give you a lot of tips about how you can prepare your child to go back to school. Some of the things we're going to focus on are how to create routines, some self-management ideas that your child can work on, how to increase social opportunities for them before they go back to school, creating social stories for your child, practicing coping skills because going back to school might be a little nerve-wracking for your child. So we talk about some ways that they can cope with any emotions they might feel as they go back to school. Also, the importance of practicing some pre-academic or academic skills before they're back in the classroom. And then the importance of visiting the school and meeting their teacher. And then most importantly, we just want to make going back to school fun and exciting. So we'll talk about that too. So the first thing to think about is creating routine. So we'll talk about a morning routine, and then also Fatima will talk about nighttime routines. So first off, we have morning routines. The first thing that you want to think about is starting to wake up at the same time every morning. So it's been the summer and maybe you're sleeping in a little bit later, but school usually starts earlier in the morning. So you want to start waking up before school starts at the same time every morning, and you can gradually start to wake up earlier. So if right now you're waking up at 9 a.m., maybe when you start this morning routine, you're starting to wake up at 8:45 and then 8:30, and then just getting earlier and earlier until you're waking up at the time that they would need to get up to go to school. It's also important to have a visual schedule of what your morning routine will look like. So coming up on the next slide, I'll have examples of what those visual schedules look like, but it just breaks down all the different steps included in your morning routine. So you wake up, you brush your teeth, you get dressed, eat breakfast, you get your lunch bag ready in your backpack, and then you head out the door and you go to school. And another thing that you can do is use visual timers within your morning routine. So when you are on the step where you're supposed to be brushing your teeth, maybe having a timer for how long that takes. Maybe the next step is getting dressed. How long is it going to take, or how much time do they have to get dressed? It's really to help guide them and show your child, how much time they have before they need to get out the door to go to school. One of the steps in their morning routine is getting dressed. So you want to give your child some choices to make them feel like they're in control. So maybe giving them a choice of what to wear. Instead of opening the closet and saying, what do you want to wear? Maybe present them with two choices. Do you want to wear this shirt or that shirt? Also, eating breakfast is, of course, an important step in the morning routine. So giving them a choice of what to eat. you don't want to just open the pantry and have all the fun snacks available to them. Instead, maybe just show them, do you want to have eggs or cereal for breakfast? Or if it's cereal, do you want to have this cereal or that cereal, to have them feel like they're in control and choosing their meal time for the morning. And then another thing to work on is practice transitioning to the car. So in these upcoming weeks before it's time to go back to school, you can maybe just have that be part of your routine where you're practicing leaving the house and getting in the car in the morning. And instead of going to school, for now, before school starts, you're going to go somewhere fun like the park. So this is an example or a couple examples of what a morning routine visual schedule would look like. So you can just see that each step in the routine is listed out, and you can adjust it accordingly depending on which steps your child is doing, and you can have them check it off as they go, or you can utilize Velcro and have them take off the Velcro check mark and put it next to each step as they go through their routine in the morning.
Alrighty, so for nighttime routine, so just as important your morning routine, your nighttime routine is pretty important too. One of the things that you want to keep in mind is having dinner at the same time every night or as close as possible. Again, routine is super important for some of our kiddos. Another thing you can incorporate is choices, which Andrea touched on in the previous slides. You can give your kiddo choices of what to have for dinner. Sometimes you can make like a little menu of what ingredients are in the household that week, and you can give the kiddo choices of what they want to have for dinner. You can also start to practice homework time at the table. So depending on your kiddo's age, they may or may not have homework. So if they're still too little and don't have homework yet, you could still practice the skill by having them sit at a table and complete a structured activity, such as an art project or an academic workbook. You can also provide a visual schedule of the nighttime routine, like Andrea mentioned with the morning routine. And in the next slide, we'll show some examples of a nighttime routine. You can also have your kiddo help up clean up toys, right? So if your part of the nighttime routine is to have free play or playtime with your kiddo, part of that routine after playtime is to have your kiddo help clean up the toys, then transition to bath time. For bath time, you can have your kiddo pick out some fun bath toys that they can bring with them to the tub. Then afterwards, you can give your kiddo the choice of what PJs to wear. Again, choices are super important. It gives your kiddo some control and increases autonomy. Then maybe it's time to read a bedtime story. And then following the bedtime story, it could be lights out with a noise machine if that helps support your kiddo's sleep hygiene. So for the next slide, we have some examples of some nighttime or after school visuals. So in the one on the left, this might be an after school visual that you have for your kiddos. So after they get home from school, they might take off their shoes, play outside, put their backpack away, use the potty, probably not in that order. So then it's important to rearrange the schedule so that they see the visual schedule in the order of the steps that they complete the routine. And the one on the right is the bedtime visual, an example of a bedtime visual schedule where maybe they take a bath, then they put on their PJs, brush their teeth, read a book, give hugs, and then it's time to go to sleep. So there's many different ways you could incorporate a visual schedule in different parts of your routine. And they're really great because they let your kiddo know what to expect for that day or for that time of the day.
And then just to add, so there's lots of resources out there about how you can, or where you can find these visual schedules. You can sometimes just type into Google visual schedules and things will come up. Autism Speaks has some good examples. Teachers Pay Teachers is another website that I would recommend using. They have, I think that might be where these ones came from. Another thing that I like to do too is just, we'll talk about this later with something else that we create to help your child, but just use a Word document and a good old Google image search and create the icons for this visual schedule that way and kind of put it together, or customize it and maybe put a picture of your child washing their hands, a picture of your family eating dinner, a picture of your kids all playing together, and have that be the icons that you use for the visual schedule.
Yeah, and if you don't have a printer, there's also, or you prefer to have things digitally, there's also some apps that are really great and help you make visual schedules, like Choice Maker is one. And you're able to have a visual schedule and it's already across your devices. So if you have an Apple device, it would sync across your iPhone and your iPad.
All right, so for some self-management tips, so these are just ideas of how your child can help themselves get ready for school. So you're gonna get their backpack ready, and they can maybe help you do this. Maybe they can go to the store and pick out a new backpack, pick out some new school supplies, or if you already have all these things at home, get them to help you put it together and put it by the door so that it's ready to go before school starts. And then maybe if you're practicing transitioning to the car in the morning, that can be part of it too, is practicing grabbing their backpack and going into the car. Another thing is giving them some independence with picking out their outfits. So maybe if they're, getting to go back to school shopping and picking out new clothes, or maybe they're just wearing the clothes that are already in their closet, that works too, but giving them the choice of what outfits they're gonna wear and maybe helping them plan it the night before so that in the morning it's not as chaotic. So maybe picking out the outfit is part of the bedtime routine instead of the morning routine. And then another thing is having them prepare or help you make their lunch. They can pick out their preferred snacks or preferred lunch items that they want from the store or just from the refrigerator and help you put their lunch together.
Another helpful tip is to increase social opportunities. So we recommend setting up play dates too, and you can set up play dates with different, peers, like old classmates, some neighbors, or some family members. We suggest keeping play dates short at first, especially if they're a new part of the routine or a challenging part of the routine. You could also have some activities planned. For example, playing a board game, then doing some art, then maybe some water play outside, and then finally having some snack or a mealtime together. You could also go to a local park or a playground to meet other neighborhood kids. So this is a good opportunity to practice social skills, and setting up those play dates will also help your kiddo, prep for playtime with their peers at school.
Okay, the next idea that we have is social stories. So social stories basically are stories that you can create or you can find them online about any new scenario that your child is going to be entering. So you can have like a general story about going back to school, or they can be a little bit more specific, and it can include things that they're going to encounter when they go back to school, like meeting a new teacher, making new friends, what their school day will look like. So if you know the different activities that are going to be in the school schedule, you can put that in their social story. I have an example on the next slide of what a social story would look like so that you guys can see. Some other examples of social stories would be, what it looks like to go to school. So you get in the car, you drive, you, pull up and park. Mom maybe walks you to the teacher's door, or maybe your child is getting on the bus, and that could be part of the social story too. So you can include whatever mode of transportation they're getting to school in, you can use that as part of their social story. And then also including talking about emotions and what emotions they might feel as they're going back to school. It can be an exciting time, it might be nervous, they might be feeling nervous, and you can just talk about that with them within the social story. So here's, I'm gonna skip ahead and then go back so that you can see visuals. So here's an example, and this is one that we found on Teachers Pay Teachers, which is that website that I mentioned earlier. And it just says time for school. And you can see on the right-hand side, these are all the different pages. So it says it's time to go back to school. I will learn about following rules. I will learn new things. I will make new friends. I will get to meet my teacher. I will take breaks if I need to. I will use the computer. School will be fun. So just kind of this includes every part of their day. And then you can also customize it too to be more specific to them. So that's where I'll go back. That last bullet point there says to make your own. So you can just use a Word document, some clip art, and personalized photos to make your own social stories. And also Fatima mentioned earlier the social story creator app too. So that's another good way. If you don't have the printer, you can just make it right on your phone and show your child the social story that way.
Another idea we had is to practice coping skills. So going back to school can be really overwhelming and nerve-wracking. That's a pretty big transition, right? Your kiddo just had a long vacation full of fun things with family and friends. So going back to school can be overwhelming. One idea is to send notes and pictures in their lunchbox or their backpack, some encouraging messages like maybe I'll pick you up after school, or today dad is picking you up after school, so they know what to expect and when a caregiver will be there. You can teach your kiddo how they can cope if they start to feel overwhelmed. So that's something that you could also link back to the social story that Andrea mentioned, is if you know your kiddo might have a hard time going back to school. Within that social story, you can say like, I'm going back to school. I might feel nervous and scared, but when I do, I can bring out my note from my mom in my backpack and remember that she's going to pick me up after school. Or I can go tell my teacher that I'm having a hard time and she might give me like, I don't know, some sort of cue to engage in a coping skill. Some ideas of coping skills that we can teach our kiddos are to take deep breaths, count to 10, possibly sing the ABCs, ask the teacher for a break, drink some water, squeeze a stress ball, or talk about our feelings and our emotions.
Okay, the next thing would be to start to practice some pre-academic or academic skills with your child before they're going back to school. And these are things that you can get maybe from their teacher or things that they were maybe learning at the end of last school year to kind of make sure that they've maintained what they learned last year throughout the summer. And you want to obviously keep it skill level and grade level appropriate for what your child needs. You'll keep it short at first, so maybe just 5 minutes a day, and this would be part of maybe your nighttime routine. It would be kind of like homework time, getting them to practice 5 minutes of tracing and looking at their letters and numbers, and then gradually increasing it as you see that they're able to sit longer at the table to do these tasks. And Teachers Pay Teachers is another, I mentioned it a few times, but it's a good resource. There's some that you have to pay for, but there's a ton of free options on there. If you just click the free section, there will be lots of things that will come up, and it's sorted by grade level and different subjects within each grade level. Lakeshore has some good academic workbooks that you can use too, and then also just using a Google search. So looking up different worksheets or academic, tracing or counting things that you can do with your child. There's lots of resources out there, and I think it's good to just touch base with maybe their teacher to see what the first few academic things that they're going to be working on in the classroom, and get your child set up for success and maybe do some of those with them before they're heading back to school.
Alrighty, another strategy we suggest is visiting the school before your kiddo starts their school. You can take your kiddo to school so that they're familiar with the environment, their classroom, possibly their teacher. You can maybe get a tour if you ask the school administrator. You could also talk with your child about how they'll get to school. Is a parent or a caregiver going to drop off? Are they going to be taking the bus? Are they going to walk? Or are they going to carpool with a friend? Again, visiting the school before they start the actual academic year is really helpful for our kiddos because they know what to expect, and they'll be primed with the school environment, their classroom, and what it will be like.
So along with that, if possible, you would want to try to have your child meet their teacher before they go back for the first day. And then there's some questions that you'll want to ask the teacher. And sometimes you're not going to always have the opportunity to ask the teacher these questions before the school year starts, but these are definitely questions you would want to ask at the beginning of the school year. You would want to know how many students and teachers are in the classroom. What is the classroom routine? So this would be important because maybe there's things that are happening throughout the class schedule that your child might need some extra help with that you can maybe practice at home with them to give them more success in the classroom setting. What if, or are there any reinforcement systems that the teachers use with their students? It will be important for you to know how the teacher will communicate with caregivers. Will they send home any like worksheets or written notes, or is it all verbal? Are there emails? Is there some sort of online way that they're communicating with caregivers about student progress? You'll also want to know if your teacher can collaborate with your child's BCBA. That's something that we really want to do. We want to collaborate with school and teachers and to make sure that we're all on the same page about behavior intervention plans and coping strategies and all that. So it would be really good to make sure that your teacher is open to collaborating with your BCBA. And then you'll also want to know what other services your child might receive at school. They might get occupational therapy, speech, adoptive, PE, and these are all things that might be discussed in your IEP meeting, or they will be discussed in your IEP meeting as well.
And lastly, try to make going back to school fun. You could talk about how fun going back to school will be. You're going to meet new friends, learn new things, have a new teacher, possibly go back to school shopping, and really encourage and hype up that activity, right? Let's get some new backpacks, maybe a new lunchbox, maybe a special water bottle, and really encourage your kiddo to look forward to starting their school year and making it fun.
Yay. Does anyone have any questions for us?
And if you do have questions, you can write them into the chat box, and I can make sure that we ask them. I haven't seen any come up yet. I will also, while we wait to see if we have questions, I'll do a plug for our recorded webinars. We have in the past presented on visual schedules as well as IEPs. And so in the follow-up email, I can send you all the link to those recorded webinars too for more information, because I feel like each of these slides you probably could do a whole presentation on. So I know this was like a little bit of an overview of all of these resources for you. But we have done in-depth presentations on IEPs and visual schedules. So those are all available on the MeBe Family YouTube channel. And I'll send you all those links in the follow-up email as well.
Katie, I know there was a blog that just went out recently too about tips for going back to school. So maybe that would be a good thing to add too, because I think in that blog, there's links to some things that we've talked about today, like the social story app creator and the visual schedule creator app.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I definitely can include that as well. All right, I do see some questions coming in. So one of the questions is, I have a 3-year-old and she's very shy and doesn't speak English. How can I prepare her for school?
I guess, will she be going to a school where they are speaking English? That is my first question.
Okay.
Follow up to that question.
Yeah.
We'll see while we get a response back.
I'm assuming they would be.
In the meantime, while they answer your follow-up question, Andrea, this participant asked or mentioned that their 3-year-old is really shy, and how can this individual prepare their child who's really shy? You could start to increase social opportunities before they start school. You can start maybe taking them to a preferred location. So if your 3-year-old really likes a specific park that has like a water fountain or something special that she's really into, you can start to take her there and maybe pair her up with one friend so that she's not super overwhelmed with a lot of different peers. Maybe it's a friend that your child is comfortable with. And maybe you start with a really short play date, or maybe you do like a few minutes and then give her a break with mom or a caregiver that she's comfortable with, and you encourage her to try again. So I think a big part is meeting her where she's at so that we are setting her up for success. So that's what I would suggest for the aspect of where she's shy.
Yeah, those are all great tips. And I think it's also important to be realistic in that, I mean, I was a shy kid. Like some kids are just shy, and the more social opportunities that you present them over time, they will come out of their shell. They will meet a friend that will bring them out of their shell and that they're willing to play with, but it'll just take time. And like Fatima said, just exposing them to different environments where they can make new friends and meet new people.
Perfect. So to the person who answered, you can chat back in the same chat too, if you'd like, if you have more questions. And if anybody else has questions, feel free to type them in now. I did get a question actually earlier about ABA services in school. So maybe you can talk a little bit about like if ABA, if ABA can be in the school, or how that might work together.
I know that for MeBe, at least here in San Diego, we are contracted with some school districts. And so we're providing ABA in those schools that we're contracted with. If you're at a private school and the payer allows it, so usually it's an insurance company that would allow us into the school setting, and it's a private school, then we can go into that school setting. But typically, if we're not contracted, at least here in San Diego, and every location is going to be different, if we're not contracted with the school, then we don't usually go into the school for ABA. And so in those cases, we would recommend, if ABA is what your child needs, that they would go to school during the day, and then they would have ABA sessions after school.
And is that same true for like preschool? And if they're not in the school district yet, would they be able to do that?
It depends on the payer. So some insurance providers allow us to go into the school settings and some don't. So you would have to check with your BCBA to see what your insurance provider allows.
Okay.
And that's across, yeah, from preschool on, I would say.
Perfect. I did get a response back to the earlier question. They said the school is bilingual, but she's afraid that the child will block when someone speaks to her in English.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if she's exposed, the more English that she's exposed to, if that's how you want her to socialize with other people, then that would be better for her. So those social opportunities that we talked about earlier, taking her to the park where other kids are speaking English, I would just kind of expose her to those opportunities beforehand in a smaller setting, like Fatima said. So the park is a big setting, right? But maybe there's one kid that is playing in the sand and your daughter likes to play in the sand too, and that one child also speaks English. So just exposing her to that in like a smaller ratio before she's at school where there's a lot more kids who are speaking English.
I would also say too that in the beginning, your daughter might have it's expected that she might have a hard time in the beginning, especially if she was like used to speaking Spanish and now or another language, sorry, I just assumed, or another language, and now they're going into an English classroom. They might have a hard time in the beginning, but over time, she's going to continue to be exposed to both English and or the other language, since it's a bilingual classroom. So she's probably going to find her way and find her way to communicate with those peers and with the teachers. And to our earlier point about collaborating with your BCBA, your clinical supervisor, and their school, if your child continues to have a hard time and they're not really making progress, like they're not able to communicate their needs to the school or their peers, then that's when your BCBA can collaborate with the school team and create a plan to support your daughter so that she is being, supportive and successful in that bilingual setting.
Thank you. And she did say that they're speaking Spanish at home.
Okay.
Do you know if any of those like social stories, would they be available in Spanish? if that's
That's
helpful.
a really great question. I think so, yeah. And your supervisor can also, that's something that they can help you with as well. Your supervisor can help you make a social story in Spanish and really cater it and personalize it to your daughter and your family. Is there anything you wanted to add, Andrea?
There is not, but there's also an alarm going off in this room.
Okay.
So
Okay, I can take the rest of the questions if there's any more while Andrea deals with an alarm.
I don't see any yet. Let's see, we'll give it an opportunity here for anybody else who's got questions, or if you have any follow-up questions as well, then you can type them in now, and we'll just give everyone a chance here. Just in closing too, while we're waiting to see if we have any other questions, we do these webinars on a monthly basis. They're free resources. We will be hosting another webinar in September for school age kids, and we'll be setting that up and sending that link out to everybody too. And like I mentioned, all the recorded webinars are on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back and check those out. We have a lot of great presentations available there too. And like we mentioned at the top of the webinar, do follow MeBe Family on Instagram and Facebook, and you can make sure to stay up to date with our presentations and events, as we do host community events and at our different learning center locations as well. So follow us online, and you can be up to date with all of our upcoming webinars and events too. And I don't see any other questions in yet. So I think we have answered all the questions that we received.
Great, sounds good. Alrighty, well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope that this webinar was helpful in helping you help your kiddo and supporting them into going back to their school and academic year.